Because earlier this week, the city's mayor, Zohran Mamdani, unveiled his preliminary fiscal year 2027 budget for the city, and it comes in at a record-breaking $127 billion. The biggest news to come out of that press conference where he unveiled the budget was that he issued an ultimatum to the state's governor, Kathy Hochul. He said she either raise taxes on the richest in the city and the most profitable corporations, or the property taxes would go up by 9.5%. What are your thoughts on the budget and the news?
I think that it's ridiculous to be proposing a 9.5% property tax increase in lieu of, the state agreeing to raise taxes that he's also seeking. He's essentially tax mailing the city of New York by saying, if you don't give me the taxes I need up in Albany, I'm going to tax New York City property owners, which he even admits are, middle and working class New Yorkers, something that he doesn't want to do. And yet he's willing to do it, according to his own words, if he doesn't get the tax support he needs from Albany. So I think that it's not something that should even be on the table. It's not something we've talked about for over 20 years, and we shouldn't be talking about it now.
And he says it shouldn't be on the table, but he's the one who did put it on the table. And I want to directly quote him. In that press conference, he said this would effectively, as you said, be a tax on working and middle class New Yorkers who have a median income of $122,000. But he wants to tax the richest New Yorkers, anyone making above $1 million per year. That affects 33,000 New Yorkers, as well as some of the most profitable corporations. Governor Kathy Hochul said she's not interested in raising the taxes there for the richest New Yorkers. I mean, what do you make of that? He says there's only two options. She says that option's not an option. City council members say, hey, raising property taxes 9.5%, that's not an option. What's left then?
So what's left is savings. I think that, we have to look really with a clear eye to what programs are working and what are not. Even the mayor has conceded that needs to happen when he created these chief savings officers earlier this year. But he's only looking for about 1.5% savings across the board in these agencies, while at the same time proposing this 9.5% property tax increase. And unlike the program to eliminate the gap, or PEG as we call it at the city level, which is mandated reported savings by agencies, these chief savings officers don't have the legal mandate behind them to even get the 1.5% he's seeking. So I think the mayor has to really be serious about belt tightening at our city agencies if we're going to make ends meet, as we're required to do by law.
From your understanding, were those chief savings officers, is this like essentially a Doge in the New York City government? What exactly does that really look like? And I know that he said that 1 point something percent or 2% of savings that they're looking for, he said that that was a floor, not a ceiling. Do you think that they'll be able to find more than that?
I think they could if they had the authority behind them. I mean, it certainly had a Doge feel to it. I mean, I was actually happy to hear the announcement when he first signed the executive order creating these positions. But the reality is that I feel like now that we've seen the budget presentation, it was really not a serious attempt to find savings, because as I indicated earlier, when you institute a PEG at the city level, you're telling the agencies they have to find the percent savings that you're looking for them to achieve. There's no such mandate. And the agencies, who, often are filled with people who are career civil servants, people who are invested in the work of those particular agencies, they're not going to give you the savings unless you require them to do it by law. So yeah, it's nice to think of the 1.5%, 2% as a floor, but the reality is I doubt it's even a ceiling, because the notion that, these agencies are going to cough up the money that they're not legally required to do, I think that's not going to happen the way he thinks it's going to occur.
And he said these are the only two options. There's no option three. This was in that press conference called the nuclear option, right? Raising property taxes by 9.5%. But if these are his only two paths forward, right? Taxing one group of people or raising property taxes on the other, do you think it's becoming clear then that the mayor wants more taxes? Because if it's only option one or option two, someone's getting taxed more here.
Without a doubt. I think that what he's saying, and I think he's been very transparent about, is that it's not should we raise taxes. He's saying who should we tax? So for him, somebody's going to get taxed. The question that he's kind of putting to us, sort of like with the proverbial gun to our heads, is do you want to tax, property owners who, again, by his own characterization, are middle and working class New Yorkers, or do we want to go with his tax the rich plan? And I think that that's really disingenuous because it's a false binary. We don't have to tax more in order to balance the budget. We can balance the budget through finding savings and efficiencies in agencies. We can have a balanced budget through reducing or eliminating programs that are not effective. There's absolutely programs that the city does that don't actually, do what we all hope that they would have done. And then in addition to that, he could reconsider his decision to get rid of Mayor Adams's 2-for-1 hiring freeze practice, right? The previous mayor said you can only hire one new worker for the city as long as 2 are leaving. That was absolutely a restraint on the growth of the city budget because labor is one of our biggest costs, and we're about to renegotiate all the city labor contracts in the coming term. So that's really something he should be thinking about revisiting, not trying to tax us into oblivion, which is basically what his strategy is.